during this time, I can explain how do we pre-process the data and especially project the 3D LiDAR data to 2D tiles. And here is the workflow. One part is to convert LiDAR 3D data points from LAS to NumPy arrays so we can extract the data. You can imagine we squeeze the 3D into 2D, and the z-axis, the elevation, will become one image, not just to show where the point is. We squeeze it into a 2D image. And then we crawl some metadata from USGS LiDAR, and then at the same time, we extract geo bounding box from SpaceNet image tiles so that we can know exactly where to crop from the USGS LiDAR. We index the USGS tiles according to SpaceNet tiles, and then eventually we project the LiDAR point to SpaceNet tiles to become an additional image with the same dimension and same location. This will take a while. That's why we pre-process all this and then give you the chance to download them directly from our dedicated bucket, S3 bucket, so you can have them right away. You don't have to do all this. This will take a long time. So here is the detailed workflow of what we have been doing to perform all those workflows. You can see that we used LAS tools. It is a Windows toolbox, and then MATLAB. So these can be quite hard to reproduce. But later we will show you everything the machine learning related part are quite reproducible. And here I want to briefly talk about how do we process the LiDAR data to align with the SpaceNet satellite image. There is one problem. There are small misalignment between LiDAR data and satellite image data. And then if we zoom into this, this is an overlay of LiDAR image and the SpaceNet satellite image. We can see some small alignment. What we do is to simply shift it. Another problem is that LiDAR points are not acquired evenly. You can imagine that those data points will reflect, those LiDAR points will reflect on a different distribution. Sometimes they're dense, sometimes they're sparse. So most grids consist of more than one point, but some grids have no point projected into them at all. And we need to do some interpolation. I can show you some example notebooks of a series of notebooks where we do the pre-processing of merging the LiDAR data and the satellite images. For example, here, as you can see, the LiDAR data was not looking so good in the beginning. This is when we first loaded from the 3D point cloud format. You can see it's totally unrecognizable, right? The intensity is just looking like this because of some amplitude problem. What we do is to do some amplitude fixing, histogram fixing, and then probably interpolation for most of it. So here is the interpolation and a histogram analysis. We're trying to see what amplitude is incorrect. For example, sometimes the amplitude of the intensity reflection can be super huge. Like most of the amplitude is lying down here, but sometimes it just go up all the way to 5 or 6 to the power of 5. So that's way over the range. It's probably some single point reflection where you have a really strong energy, but it totally destroyed the whole histogram. We need to suppress those points. Right. This is after the suppressive, you can start to see something in it instead of a total black map. And then we have some results here. The first row is the before fixing, and the second row is after. And then before fixing the intensity map, and then the last row is the fixed version of it. And then we export these versions out to align them with the SpaceNet images. As you can see here are the SpaceNet satellite images. They look greenish because we haven't done the white balance on it. That's also one of the pre-processing. This can be taking really long time, but so we did all this process for you so that you can download from the S3 bucket directly and then start the machine learning process we'll introduce later. So this one is the notebook where we do the actual interpolation for all the LiDAR data, and then we also do some conversion. Just a quick glimpse of them. There are so many details here, and then more after process. Also, one important part here is that because of the projection difference, you may understand there are many projection methods for aerial information, for how do I say, look down images, either satellite images or LiDAR images from aerial resources. So you can see here, the left side is the overlay of a pseudo-color image of LiDAR and the original mask labels. You can see there are a little bit shifting there because of the projection. After the fix, they kind of align, but they're not perfectly aligned still. This is one big problem we're trying to do multimodal data analysis, because a lot of the times, probably most of the times, we will have to do some manual registration to data. They never align perfectly in the first place. You have to take this into consideration. So sometimes when you have your model ready, when you have a data perfectly aligned processed, but they just didn't give you a good result. So probably sometimes they're not aligned, probably for a little. When I was trying the model at the first time, I realized that I didn't realize this, and then when I trained the model, it always did not perform really well because the two data sources are not aligned with each other. They give you conflicting information. That's why we need to go to the beginning to really study in detail of how to make your data agree with each other. And here we do some histogram analysis. I want to show you here the color ones, the red, green, and blue. They come from the RGB free channel satellite image. The grayish one is the LiDAR intensity value, and the elevation is the distribution of elevation value. Right? This makes sense because you can see most elevations are from 2,000 feet to 3,000 feet. But when we are selecting one image tile, which is when the network is looking at an image each time, you will see that RGB and the intensity looks just fine, but the elevation is really bad. It's focused, it's limited to one small range. You can also understand the reason quite straightforward. If you think of a small tile, it's not going to range from 2,000 feet to 3,000 feet. It's only going to give you some range between ground floor and the top level rooftop. So that's a quite small range. With this said, you can see that we are doing some small normalization here. We're not going to use the global elevation, the absolute value here. We will use the relative value. That's what you will see in your downloaded data. We process these data to convert them from absolute elevation value to some relative value. So how high it is from the current ground floor, not from 2,000 feet or not from the sea altitude. That's why you can see that now the elevation looks much better, just like the RGB value. Alright, that's all I can show you for the pre-processing. We're not going to touch them in detail because they're so long, they're so redundant for this tutorial. But if you have any questions, you just feel free to ask me. And if now we switch back to the Jupyter Lab, we can see that it's already finished the downloading everything, including necessary data and the trained models. For example, here these PTH files are the PyTorch models you will be using to reproduce the deep learning prediction soon. So what's the next step? We can just launch the notebook right now. You can see there are two notebooks, building footprints and road network. So actually in this folder we also provide light version of folder notebooks right here. We will first start with this one, building footprint light.ipynb. You will be prompted to select a kernel. Just select the one we just installed. It's called Kana Tutorial Env. If you didn't do that, you can still click here and then select the Kana Tutorial Env again. So this name should match the name where you were running the setup env.sh commands. So here is the notebook we start. You can see there are instructions and the codes. If you put all these codes into a Python script, they will all run just fine. So notebook is a combination of documents and the codes, and you can even see some figures in here, which is great. So if you can see that here we have a green dots beside the notebook, In Jupyter Lab, this means that the notebook is right now is running, and we can also see this one, the untitled we just created to verify the installation. When we click the next tab here, the second tab here, you will see that all the kernel sections that is running. And to save memory or save runtime, you can just shut down this one. All right. Try again. Okay, now it's shut down. It's no longer using our resources. So to explain what's the difference between light version and the full version. The full version actually uses some GPU resources to run a chaining and the full test dataset scoring. So that's taking a lot of the time and the proper resources. It will cost you a lot if you're running on a GPU machine. So we also provide this light version for you to be able to run with free tier SageMaker. That's nice, right? We can just run for free and then try out all these things, including you can input some figures and then get the outputs right away.